Welcome to Rising Leaders of New York with your host, David Zwerin of Hill & Moin, LLP. They present to you conversations with today's and future leaders of New York City discussing the challenges and issues relevant to New Yorkers. You can find this show at www.hillmoin.com and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Now here are the hosts of Rising Leaders of New York.
Hello, everybody. My name is David Zwerin. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Rising Leaders of New York, where I get the privilege and the opportunity to speak with people who are really on the cutting edge of the important issues that we as New Yorkers need to know about in our daily lives. And this week, I have the tremendous pleasure of speaking with my friend, Leona Krasner, the managing partner of Krasner Law, PLLC in Midtown Manhattan. Leona is a matrimonial attorney, but more than that, she is a sensational business person. Hard to believe, I think she's only been a partner or the founder of her firm for, I think, about 4 years. She went from a solo practitioner to a thriving firm with multiple attorneys, multiple paralegals, and every time I hear from her, it seems like things are only growing and growing. And she managed to do that in the midst of a global pandemic where most people were worried about staying afloat and just treading water. Leona is thriving and growing and is an amazing attorney and a real inspiration for a lot of people. I'm sure we're going to have a really exciting conversation today. So welcome, Leona, to the podcast.
Thank you so much, David. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Leona, how did you end up becoming a matrimonial attorney? Tell us a little about yourself and how you came to eventually be the founder of Krasner Law.
All right. Well, that's a great question. I decided I was going to be a lawyer when I was 9 years old. I think I read some kind of really good book, and the main character was a lawyer. I wasn't too sure what it was they did, but gosh darn, I was going to be one. And so then went to law school. Goal was always to help children. And in law school, you realize the aim is to make sure that you get a job at the end, as opposed to precisely what kind of job it is. A little bit less of a focus, I found, especially in 2012 when I was graduating. And so I like to litigate. I like to get into court and do stuff. So I started out at the Attorney General's office, and then they couldn't understand why I was there 6 and 7 o'clock at nighttime. And so then I went private and worked for a number of big companies on their litigation teams and missed working with individual people and realized I was fighting up cashiers and Uber drivers a little bit too much. And so right around that time, I actually joined a BNI group as their tutor. BNI has a 1 seat per profession policy, and I've got this side hustle. I launched a tutoring company years and years ago, and so figured I'd be the tutor on the side. And so while I was in BNI, there was a family lawyer there who was amazing. And so at our first one-to-one, she invited me. Well, actually, I said, I'd love to start my own law practice. And she said she would love to help me. And so she took me under her wing. I became of counsel to her, learned the ins and outs of not only family law, but how to run your own law practice. And then I launched my firm in 2019.
And since then, you've gone from being a sole practitioner to every time you're very, very active on social media. And every time I look at your website or look at your Facebook, it seems like there's only more associates and more paralegals. How big are you now?
So we're at around 8 people, and it's a lively team of attorneys and paralegals.
And what kind of aspects of family law do you get involved? You mentioned litigation. Like, what are all the aspects of family law you handle?
So we're helping folks in New York and New Jersey who fall into one of 4 buckets. First, folks who are looking to get married and are looking to learn more about a prenuptial agreement. Second bucket is folks who really don't want to be married anymore and are considering a divorce. And so whether it's an uncontested divorce, a contested divorce, or they'd like to mediate out their divorce, we help with that. Third bucket has to do with the children, the kids. And so we're talking custody, visitation, child support, maternity, neglect. We assist with those things. And then the fourth bucket is restraining orders. So whether somebody's filing a restraining order against a family member, a partner, a former partner, we assist with those as well.
And other than litigation, does your firm handle any other aspects, or is your firm the place you go, like where for the more contentious aspects of divorce? Do you handle counseling or just spouses who cannot agree on custody or divorce or things like that?
The aim is to settle, but the aim is to settle in a way that's fair for our clients. So if the other side is offering to settle where our client will never see the child again, and our client in fact wants to see the child again, actually quite a lot, we're obviously not going to take it. But I'd say a really huge number of divorces settle. A decent number of custody matters and restraining orders and order matters and child support matters settle as well. So the aim is to get to a place where the client can feel comfortable with the terms they're agreeing to. And if there is no such place, then we're going straight to trial. And I enjoy trial. And the meaner and yuckier opposing counsel is, the more in my stride I get. I remember I was 2 days past my due date to deliver my little boy, who was not coming out because he was real comfy in there. And I have a virtual court appearance, and there are 3 attorneys on the other side. And first the judge asked, this was a virtual court, but still the judge knew I was very pregnant, why I was there. And then we launched into it, and I made sure that my client's position was heard, and all 3 attorneys didn't have a good day at court on the other side. So I enjoy it when people bring it on because that really helps me shine. But if it's possible to settle, I want to do that.
No, you and I know that we as litigators, obviously here I do personal injury attorney, you got to wear 2 hats. You got to know all the issues there are to have in the case so you can develop your most effective litigation strategy and zealously advocate for your client's rights. But we also serve as counselors. We know there's always risk to any litigation. It doesn't, hopefully for both of us, a lot of our cases go very well, and I'm sure most of yours do too, but litigation always has risk. So we got to counsel our clients as to what's best for them. Absolutely. As to the prenuptial agreements, is that a major focus of the business? Do a lot of people seek out prenuptial agreements? Why is that something people should be considering when they're getting married?
Okay, so Leona, do a lot of people come to you regarding prenups? Do you have to counsel them through it? Is that one of your questions, sort of?
Right. How many people really are seeking out prenups, and if they're not, why is that? Is that something people should be thinking about?
Okay. So people who are looking for prenups usually self-select themselves in. I'm not in the business of convincing somebody to get legal services that they really don't want or cannot afford. So typically, it's either somebody typing into Google, New York prenup, or asking their friend, hey, I want to get a prenup. Do you know somebody who can help me? Or somebody talking to somebody else. And that's how, when they get to me, they're like, hey, I've thought about this. I think I want it. As opposed to, I really don't want it, Leona. Please convince me otherwise. So why get one, though, is what I think I'm hearing. Is that right?
Right. Why would you generally think this is a good idea for people getting married? Is it always a good idea? There's times it isn't.
So what is critical, I think, when it comes to chatting about a prenup is chatting about money, chatting about what things are going to look like going forward as one person and another person get married. Usually the goal is for the relationship to work. And if there are secret accounts or this air of mystery, my mom loves this idea of this air of mystery, but let me tell you, as a family lawyer, usually doesn't pan out well. Having the conversation about money, what the plan is about money, about accounts, about property, what you got, right? What have you got? What does the other person have, right? Having those conversations early means you're much more likely to stay married, and you won't have to come visit me later because things fell apart because you didn't tell them about the 17 other properties you've got, or the massive debt you've got, or the fact that there's a gambling problem, right? Airing these things out early, I find, is very helpful to saving relationships and getting them on the right path from the get-go. Now, prenups aren't for everybody. You got two 18-year-olds who have nothing, so long as hopefully they can be open with each other and make a plan. Do these people really need a prenup? I don't know. I am not of the camp that every single person needs a prenuptial agreement. That is not my view. That said, if folks are calling me and wanting to know more about what a prenup is and whether it's right for them, we're going to be talking through their specific cases, and I'm going to be giving them honest feedback. And that honest feedback is sometimes, no, you don't. You don't need a prenup at this time. You may need some sort of agreement in the future, possibly, but maybe you don't need one right now, and I think that's okay. I'd rather turn away people who don't need something than take on folks by pretending that they do.
Interesting. What about someone like you mentioned, the 18-year-olds? What those people don't have any assets now, but like maybe in 10 years later, they're thriving and have lots and lots of assets. What do you think about that, and considering a prenup at that stage, or is there something that can be done 10 years into the marriage if they don't have one and now they have lots of assets?
That's a great question. So there are prenuptial agreements, which have to be signed before a marriage. And then there are postnuptial agreements, which are the same thing, but they're signed after two people get married. And there's really no limit on when a postnup can be signed. Thing is, both people need to sign it. So there's a lot more incentive before a marriage to sign a prenup where it's written in there that they don't want to get married unless this document is signed, versus a postnup. Hey, honey, sign this thing. What does it say? That you won't get alimony since I make more money than you will. I'm not signing that, right? So it may become a little bit more difficult to sign a postnup down the line. But oftentimes, actually, I see people who are considering divorce, and the question becomes, hey, spouse, either sign the postnup or I'm going to go divorce you right now. So they have a little bit of slightly different uses in terms of how they're used once in a while.
Interesting. So do you find a postnuptial agreement or a request for such a thing is often a precursor to a visit to you for the people who want to stop being married, or can it be done amicably?
It can be done amicably. There have been cases where folks hire me to do a prenup and their wedding is in a week or 2 weeks or 3 days. And then they realize that there's a little bit more to a prenup than just, okay, I want one. And so they opt to instead do a postnuptial agreement, and they sign one of these shortly after they're married. So they didn't quite get to it on the prenup side, and so they signed that postnup very shortly thereafter with very similar terms.
I'm curious, Leona, we here at Hill and Moin, we do a lot of litigation in the Supreme Courts of the state of New York. And I know you litigate almost every day. I see that on your Facebook page every day. I get a photo of the many courts where you're going to and succeeding on behalf of your clients. I'm curious, what is your experience? How do you feel that litigation, and maybe even just the world of practicing matrimonial litigation, has changed in the last few years since the pandemic?
Well, the courts now do this thing called virtual court, which is amazing and very helpful because it allows me to attend more court appearances in a day than otherwise ever would have been possible. I had a record-breaking day where I appeared on 8 different matters one time. That is not the norm. 8 is a lot. But I would say that these days I appear for 3 to 5 matters per day. Now, a lot of courts are resuming in-person appearances, and so it changes the game a lot because it'll be in-person court, virtual court, in-person court, where virtual court will happen on a bench outside of a courtroom. And a lot of attorneys, if you look around, are doing something similar because of this sort of hybrid type model. But virtual court has really changed the way law is practiced. Trial binders are not a thing really when you're practicing online. It's a matter of having a folder with everything sort of neatly labeled and knowing which buttons to press and which buttons not to press, and maybe don't press the filter that makes you a cat. Right? Who accidentally pressed the cat filter, and then spent the entire appearance telling the judge that he is not in fact a cat. But aside from that, I'd say it's been extraordinarily helpful because the court can then either call somebody on the phone, say a party, or send over a link to somebody. And it's really changed the practice of law a lot.
Are most of your trials bench trials, or do you do jury trials as well?
There are no jury trials in New York or New Jersey when it comes to family law.
So that's interesting. So for you, for the matrimonial sphere, that it really does sound like a wonderful thing, because if you're going to do bench trials, that makes it so much easier to have that access to be able to do all these appearances maybe simultaneously. You do have to check those judges' rule now that we're same here. Some judges are staying virtual, some are in person. So staying on top of park rules is really, really important.
Yes.
But I agree, if you don't need jury trials, for a bench trial, virtual must be a wonderful, amazing thing. In our sphere, I know that because for personal injury, you have to connect with the jury and you have to be able to get the jury. It's been a long 3 years to get a continuing path towards normalcy. So very different on our end, but it's really good to know that I guess the court has adapted in the family law sphere in such a positive way to make it sounds like quicker and easier for litigants to get their day in court and for advocates like you to communicate effectively for them.
Yes, that's been my experience for sure.
Interesting. So I guess on a different topic, you are an amazing business person, as I kind of teased at the introduction. You have a thriving firm in just a few years of matrimonial practice, going from someone just learning to being a solo practitioner to now having a very busy, thriving business. What has been your loaded question, biggest secret to success, and what do you think people should need to know if they're wanting to take a similar route to just jumping in and trying their hand at running a law firm, learning what it is to learn an area of law and to practice and run a firm?
All right. So first thing is pull the trigger. Pull the trigger sooner rather than later. It's always a matter of learning more and more, and there's always more to learn, but there are also resources to help you on the internet, on the websites for the courts. They will have sample documents of nearly all kinds to help you do your job. And oftentimes, if you ask really nicely, other people who do that thing that you wish to do will be happy to share some tidbits that may be helpful. So if you're on the fence about wanting to start your own law practice or even business, do it. Do it now as opposed to waiting. Sooner is better. Be ready to make mistakes. That is the best way that we learn. All right. And somebody who has an attorney by their side who's fighting for them is going to be in a better place, even if that attorney is still at the sort of more beginning end of learning the ins and outs of a particular area of law, than if they showed up in court by themselves. You get to be an advocate, and you are allowed to continually learn on the job. I learn new things every single day. In terms of rapid growth, I think what's important is to set goals, check in on those goals, and make sure that you're taking steps towards reaching those goals every single day. So I really like the book, The Slight Edge, which talks about the fact that we're constantly slightly improving or slightly getting worse in all the different areas of our lives. We're not staying static, right? I missed the gym today. My health is going down an itty bit, all right? I call up one extra potential client today. I'm getting a little bit better at sales, right? So think about what you want those goals to be, and think about what little teeny tiny actions you need to take today to ensure that you get to that big goal a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now.
So that is definitely great advice. And one thing I'll say about you and that I know to be true, Leona, is that you are very big about actionable plans and accountability, figuring out what are your flaws or my flaws, or what are ways any person can grow as a person or as a business person. Where can process be improved? What do other people have to say? What can I learn from them? That was one of the things I always enjoy about getting to talk to you every day. And you and I are in the same networking group, so I get to learn a lot from you on a regular basis. And I know that accountability is very important, and that's something I find very inspiring about you. I know you are constantly trying to be more accountable, and even I think I've seen from you that you have like people you partner with to stay accountable and learn from them, and just constantly be trying to do something better every day, which I think is a very admirable way to live your life, and I'm sure it makes you a better person and a better lawyer.
I like it. I think accountability is really helpful because I was the kid in the front row at school going, teacher, pick on me, right? So knowing that there's a quote unquote teacher, right? Somebody who gets to see that I did my homework, that I got the A plus, that I did the extra credit is inspiring to me. It's very easy to go, hey, Leona, in my head, go and wash the dishes today, right? Unless I tell somebody, if I don't do the dishes, who cares? Right? So it is helpful for me, the way I'm built, to know that somebody else knows I'm going to do the thing. Now, they usually don't care a whole lot, to be quite honest with you, right? I mean, it doesn't hurt them if I do my dishes or not in this example, but it is the fire under my tushy because now somebody else knows. All right. So that's incredibly helpful. So when it comes to sales in my firm, we've got a sales celebration channel in the in a Slack group thingy that we've got. Technology is also great, and my team is constantly teaching me about newer, hipper things. But yes, somewhere to post the sales celebrations means we're more likely to have sales celebrations versus, oh, I got a new sale, whatever. Not as inspiring to go get that next one, right? And knowing what that big goal is, so we're working towards somewhere, is very helpful. Another thing that I'm accountable for is gratitude. It is easy to get bogged down with the negative, the tough in today's world, and to focus on that, and I'd rather not. So each morning I've got an accountability partner, and we chat about things we're grateful for that morning. And that sets the tone for the entire day. My husband and I are accountable to each other. We call it relationship review, where we talk about how the other person went above and beyond that week every Sunday. And it's real helpful. And some of the stuff that he remembers or that I remember really sort of throws the other person for a loop, right? We've been married for some time now, but knowing that he's still got an eye out for stuff that he appreciates versus, hey, honey, you didn't do X, Y, Z, I think is very helpful for our relationship. And then in terms of personal productivity and doing the things I don't like doing, there's a website called focusmate.com, where basically you're video chatting with a stranger and y'all both want to do things you probably don't want to do. And then they're in the little video thing on the corner. And at the very beginning of this hour-long or half-hour-long session, you mention what you're going to do. And then they're kind of watching you, but not really. And then you check in at the end. So it'd be really embarrassing to say, hey, remember that thing I said I'd do an hour ago? I didn't do it, right? Here's the opportunity. So to get through all those emails, it's really great to say, hey, look, I'm going to go get through 100. They're like, 100? And then we jump back on and I'm like, 115. And then we're excited. So that is helpful for me. Helps me do those things that might be a little bit tougher for me to do. Helps me to celebrate the smaller things and make each day a little bit more meaningful and positive as opposed to in the dumps and negative.
Very interesting. I think growth is like so important for attorneys, and generally, I think a lot of what you described is a real attention to being mindful, which is seems like at least my experience as a humble husband and father of two amazing children. Being mindful is really, really important. How can you grow in your marriage and learn the things and not be static, and grow and try to be making good, better choices and evolving every day? And I imagine that's what makes you, and I'd like to think makes me a good lawyer. That attention to detail and being mindful and wanting to grow and being hungry to constantly evolve and make better decisions, how to practice better, how to learn more and do everything you can for your clients every day, because they call it the practice of law, because we don't ever master it, but get pretty darn good at it. And obviously, Leona Krasner, you are very good at it. So for people who might be in need of your service, who hopefully we have some people listening to this who are hopefully getting married really soon, and God forbid, or not getting married and want to stop being married sometime soon. How can people get in touch with you?
All right. So you can give me a call at 917-589-6519. You can shoot me an email at Leona, that's Leona, at Krasner, that's LKRASNER.com.
Thank you so much, Leona Krasner. It was an absolute pleasure to speak with you today. I can speak very highly. I know Leona very well, as someone I get the privilege of speaking with on a weekly basis. She is an amazing attorney, and just a really, as I'm sure has comes across in this half-hour conversation, just an amazing person. Someone you will not waste your time getting an opportunity to know. You'll come away with great advice about your marriage, and I'm sure you'll make your marriage stronger. Or if your marriage is not so strong anymore, it'll come to the desired conclusion you're looking for, with a much better chance of success if you consult her. She's a great person for you to know. So thank you so much for joining us, Leona.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this week. My name is David Zwerin. I'm the senior trial here at Hill & Moin. We are a plaintiff's personal injury firm, particularly focusing on all matters of premises that are accidents where people have an accident inside or outside of premise, particularly construction accident cases. If you happen to be in need of such services, if you're involved in a construction accident or on someone else's property or inside a property and have a serious accident, please give us a call. Otherwise, until next time, when I get to talk to another rising leader of New York, this is my great pleasure to do. I'm David Zwerin of Hill & Moin LLP, and I'll see you next time. Have a great evening, everyone.
Bye.
You've been listening to Rising Leaders of New York, hosted by David Zwerin of Hill & Moin LLP. You can catch prior episodes at www.hillmoin.com and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing this show with others.